it will be reduced by half of 1% for each month you apply early, or basically 6% year. So if you claim a year early, you lose 6%. 2 years, 12. 3 years, 18. 4 years, 24. Now, if you apply early, 4 years, that's 24. These people are not deciding about, look, they can it up to 3/4 of 1%, which would be 9% per year. So at 9 years, at 4 years, 4 9 is 36, you will lose 36% of your pension for life. That's 36% is almost half. So that means that if you are in a situation, let's say you got ill and cannot continue to work, and you apply for your pension early, you can lose 36% of it for 4 years, or 3 years, 27. You think these people care about you? So what they're actually doing now, when the fella see, like, I can lose so much of my pension if I apply early, you ain't gonna apply early. You will only apply early if and when you are in such dire straits that you can't do anything more than that. You ain't got nothing to fall back on. And if you are down and out, have nothing to fall back on, the government will rob you again. Under this proposal, the government will rob you again. When you have nothing, the government going to take that from you too. Good there. I do not want you to march. I will march the bar and I will march Sandy.
You're right. Saturday and Sunday. I'm telling you what about talking about people not to march and spreading lies. And you can tell she's afraid. She's now offering people $100. That's the 7 o'clock news. Right? All the things that they did today, because guess what? I know she's afraid. Are you still hearing the echo on my microphone?
It's better than it was, but we will make it do.
Okay, I have Winston is on, and Winston, let's hear yours and see if yours is any better.
You're muted, Winston.
Okay. I think I'm unmuted now.
Good.
Are you hearing me?
We hear you now.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I just want to say though that I would love for everybody to come out. I have Kimar Stewart on the line here. All right. Kimar, I'm speaking to you while I'm live on the Marcy Week show. I'm hoping that you will come on. Could you just click on the link and come on, please? All right. I'm going to send that to you.
Kimar is actually on already. That's him here.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, I got that message from you. Yes, there's a rumor going around stating that the march has been called off. Now, we know the shenanigans of these people. We know what they're up to, and they would do anything to dissuade or deter people from coming out to that march, especially in numbers, because that would show them up. All right? But the march is on, everyone, for tomorrow, the Saturday the 12th, from 10 a.m. from Kensington over the Massey Car Park opposite. At 10 a.m. we'll be there. We have 3 hours to take our cool time, okay, and march up to Independence Square, where we will be speaking en route, okay, and letting everybody know the transgressions of this current administration relevant to the pension and national insurance scheme. All right. I, for one, I would love for them to give back us our money. As Caswell would have raised the point that they are just trustees of the fund, and they never ask our permission to use our money to do any investments or whatever. They never asked that. So I am quite surprised to see that they're just
cannot hear anything whatsoever.
You're not hearing anything? Who is not hearing? Are you hearing me, Marcia?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Kimar is not hearing.
Kimar is not hearing. I don't know.
Kimar.
You hear me, Caswell? You hear me, Caswell? Okay, he's
Yeah,
muted.
but I'm hearing you well, Dwayne, but
Okay, okay.
I can't hear you.
All right. Anyway, I am surprised to see that they will write off more than $2 billion when they can't do that with China. They can't do that with the IMF. They can't do that with the World Bank. And these people keep demeaning us, the Barbadian public, all the time. I keep stressing on the comments that are being made by RPM on social media. Very disparaging, very belittling, as if we are non-entities. You know, I'm to see the people who adulate her. You know, she could come out and say things like, we outside. You understand? And everybody jumping up saying, we outside when she's the person who put everybody inside in the first place. She can come on and say she don't give a what nobody say. You understand? Everybody jumping and saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. You understand? And these people are the same people who are going to be biting the nail just like us. The same people who vote for her, the same people who adulate, etc. You understand? This is time that we come out in force and not only come out once, but come out continuously. And when they see the numbers, they will take stock because they will know there will be no return to them for the 30 seats again. They will know that it's time that we start taking people from among us to represent us who can empathize with us, not nobody with a silver spoon in the mouth. You understand? Uh, outrageous. 68 years old. Can you imagine that? I saw a situation where a gentleman who was working at a secondary school here, he retired a day. He died the same day. You understand that? That happened
Yeah,
something last year. You're aware of that,
Founda-
Caswell?
foundation.
Foundation school,
I had a
that's
little
right.
together and it dies.
The same
Same day.
day. You understand? You can imagine though if he were if this had been implemented, he wouldn't get to see retire at all. You understand? This is atrocious, man. I'm begging everybody to come out. I'm begging you to bring your friends, bring your family, bring your children, bring everybody. You understand? And when you see this on social media, share it all tonight. Be sharing. Share from St. Lucie to Christchurch. Share from St. Andrew back to St. Michael to St. James. Share it in St. George and St. Thomas. Share this with everybody because when we come out, we want to come out. I want a good couple of thousand people out there, man. I want a good couple of thousand people because when they see these numbers, you will see how fast they will react. Because we did it the last time and they reacted immediately. You understand? The first time I ever see, they called and I was able to meet with the whole parliament. You understand me? We need that. We can repeal this. Let people know, Caswell, that even if they pass a bill, that it can be repealed. Let them know that. The president still has to sign off. And there are things that we can do because if we don't accept it, we don't want it, they can't initiate or institute it. All right? And people have to realize the power they have, the unity that we have. Let us all come out, please. I'm begging you. All right? I'm bending knees. Come out one and all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Winston. Let's see if Kimar, can you hear now?
Yeah, before I do that, Marcia, I just
Yes.
got a call. That's why I'm muted. Somebody want to know what color to wear. I just tell them any color. Come as
Any
long as you're
color.
naked.
Any
You want
color
to
at
know?
all. Just come.
Just come. Just let them know. Come. Come and whatever you
Polka
want.
dot, pinstripe, just come. Just come.
Yes, somebody here is asking, did the DLP leader make any public statements about NIS yet? And we have to be honest and say
As,
they did today.
as
They
we
did
speak,
today.
as we speak,
Mm,
they're doing it now. As we speak right now, he's doing some
hmm.
little thing or the other. Okay, as we
Yeah.
speak.
So
I
so
think it's
they
just
did
a
a
result of us speaking.
well, and that's the whole thing. And this is what when we say to people, don't say that the march is not going to help or you doing your, something. It's not going to help. Look at what's happening. This is on the lips of everybody. Before we came on, it wasn't on the lips of everybody. So do something in your small way. I'm just hoping that Kimar, can you hear? Kimar is not hearing.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can hear. I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead, go ahead. Winston, you can go ahead because my sound is terrible. But listen, we're working as a team tonight. Okay.
Okay. Yes, Kimar, come on, please, and let us hear you. Let us hear your comments. Kimar has been continuous in his comments and his videos, and I would like you to come on and educate us, please. Go ahead, Kimar.
Hey, good night to everyone. Good night to you, Rachel, Marcia, Caswell. Good night to the audience. Just want to say thank you for having me on the show. So where do we start? We're discussing the NIS and the raising of the pension age. As Caswell started rightfully by saying this issue started with the write-off in 2018, where by stroke of a pen, robbed the NIS of $1 billion in their debt restructuring, a debt restructuring which was overpaid for, having white oaks. If you could remember, the international press criticizing the government for overpaying fees to restructuring, and the debt restructuring in Barbados cost more than the debt restructurings in Greece and many other larger countries which paid way less for debt restructuring. But Barbados overpaid for hours to a company called, well, it was just basically like a two-man boutique backyard company, which most people never really heard of. And Caswell could correct me if I'm wrong there. So after the restructuring, the government rolled out the IMF BERT plan, and in the IMF BERT plan, one of the stipulations was to fix the pension system. If you look back at any of the IMF documentations, you would always see pension reform as one of the listed agendas. Years passed on, they never got to do it. And the government called an early election because they were becoming too unpopular in the way how to handle the vaccine issues, and there were protests and people fighting against that. So they didn't want to touch the pension reform in the midst of all of the trouble to help topple the government at the time. So on December 7th last year, the government, or MIA, came out in a press conference and announced that we were going to enter into another IMF program, and the two items that were left on there were pension reform and state-owned enterprise reform, the SOE reform. So outside of the writing off of the debt, the government actually mismanaged the NIS during the COVID period. And how then can you instruct for an actuarial review to be done in the midst of COVID after you know how the severe run on all of your funds? How can you do an actuarial review and expect it to show that the funds will be up? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I would think that the actuarial review should have been done after you put back the money in the NIS and wait until it has been replenished to have a better understanding of what was happening there. So I'm thinking that this is an agenda as per course of whatever agreements they signed on to stop people from getting pensions later on in their lives, because the IMF has criticized Barbados's social system as far back as Sir Lloyd Sandy for saying that it is too generous to the people and they have to roll back and cut some of the benefits. So Barbados has been under pressure internationally for some time to reduce and cut out some of these benefits that we receive. So, for example, the non-contributory pension, the IMF has criticized that severely and said that it does not tackle poverty alleviation too well, and that they would want it moved. But for some odd reason, the Barbados Labour Party had in their manifesto that they were going to increase non-contributory pension, and Ornafa predicted that such a plan would have bankrupted the NIS eventually. And we're starting to see some of the repercussions of the policy decisions that the government made. Now, if you listen to Dr. Kevin Greenwich, you would hear him saying constantly that the BERT plan and the IMF plan is a local plan, and they would have crafted this plan locally, and it's not the IMF's plan, and the IMF has nothing to do with the implementation of these things that the IMF only recommend. To me, that's basically bullshitting the people. because we signed on to the IMF program, and through the IMF program, we know approximately $4 billion in foreign debt, and that was not the case in 2018. Right now, we are still banned from international credit markets because of the same restructuring, and the government is borrowing from these institutions, claiming that it was cheap money. But then they got the shock of their lives when they realized that the interest rates jumped 400%, which basically puts Barbados into a debt trap with a growing elderly population, very low youth employment in the public sector, and you're not really opening up any new industries or whatever to get people into work. You're not fixing the chronic issues that the NIS has, like employers stealing the NIS money and holding on to it and refusing to pay in. We're not speaking about the fact that the Attorney General during COVID extended the severance period from about 13 weeks to about 22, 23 weeks. And that helped put a serious damper on the severance fund. And that could be referenced also in the actual review by Derek Osborne, where he said that the changes by the Attorney General to the severance fund actually helped to destroy the severance fund in the NIS. So going further, the government allowed employers to hold on to whatever payments were due to the NIS for extended periods of time during COVID, and they never sought to recoup that money to be able to recapitalize the NIS. And upwards to today, the government still has to work up with the IMF how they're going to actually recapitalize the money that they would have written off in 2018. So that, on top of the fact that, and this is not just a Barbados Labour Party issue, no, and this NIS issue is a political issue, but across both governments, really, we saw the NIS being used for purposes that it should not have been used. And the government used legislation basically to increase the borrowing limits of the NIS. So, for example, if the government was legally mandated to hold 60% of government bonds on the NIS portfolio, the governments were using legislation to increase that to 70%, 80%, just rough examples, and giving themselves access to extra revenues through the NIS where they couldn't get money elsewhere. So if you check the government's debt portfolio, through the NIS, a large section of the NIS's debt portfolio is government bonds. And if you check throughout the history, it was not always like that. So you had governments misusing the fund, keep raising the limit to keep drawing money from the NIS, and they were never replenishing it, just writing it off, just giving it away, never seeking to collect it. So you heard Rod Adams speaking about investing the monies of the NIS overseas, and persons had issues with that. So to explain that a tad bit, and I keep mentioning the borrowing limit, they're saying that they're reducing the limit. They're reducing the limit of investments that the government can use to borrow funds locally. So basically, they are capping the politicians at the knees locally to allow for the politician to go and invest overseas, which takes foreign exchange from the central bank. Now, if they're saying they want to invest this money overseas to bring back returns or whatever, that actually changes the money of what is a national insurance scheme, and it changes it into something else. It won't be a national insurance then. You're changing the function of it, and then you're changing it over into a statutory board, which means that you're trying to move it from being a public service job, and now you're going to work for the NIS board. So loosening the regulations on top of the investment portfolio without the transparency as to who will be the investment managers over the portfolio, what is the limits to the investments, what are the categories of investments that you can invest the monies into, who is going to benefit from these investments if the government itself is going to open companies and go invest overseas, or will it be another situation where they're going to allow their big oligarch friends to benefit from the NIS to go and do their overseas biddings? These are things that we need to know, as opposed to just saying that the government is going to reduce the ability to borrow locally and put the money overseas. We always know in Barbados, whenever the government unlocks some type of money, it usually ends up in the hands of like 1, 2, 3 players. And let's look at the vaccine scandal, and you will understand where I'm coming from with this.
Right.
So to jump out of the frying pan into the fire without the transparency, and in Barbados, there's no such thing really known as transparency. We only hear if you end up in a court case overseas, or you only hear if the international media would report it. And as Caswell said, persons are afraid to be victimized locally in the press, and not carry these type of issues because they still have to eat. So my thing is here, the fund needed to be protected from the abuses of ministers and the parliamentarians, yes. However, there were other suggestions on the table, as opposed to raising the age to 68. The little Warrell came out and said he would prefer early retirement. The same way we could go and borrow from billions to borrow from the IMF. We could go and borrow from the IMF to allow persons who want to come out the civil service early, fully paid, and allow for a higher drove of young persons who have a longer time to work in the public service to get a chance to work. I would have thought that for a government who promised you for empowerment, that would have been the direction you were looking to go, as opposed to asking people to work basically until death. So what I'm seeing here, I'm very happy that we are protesting these issues. And why I'm extremely happy is because I actually wrote a book speaking about pension reform in Barbados. And in this book, it came back lockstep and verbatim. Everything I put on the table, the government actually implemented the same way it was done around the world in all of the IMF programs. Every country that was on the IMF program that restructured its pension system, the recommendations were almost the same. Increase the pension age, cut benefits for certain classes or whatever. They carried out allowances for the high-level civil servants and for their friends. We have a very nasty case of politics here where a union leader is sitting in parliament negotiating wage increases for herself and for her parliamentary colleagues. The government actually set up their pension by extension, where they would have given themselves every time the public servants had a pay increase, the parliamentarians had a pay increase. So the parliamentarians had 2 pay increases, which by extension mean like their pay later will possibly increase. So they increase their pension de facto, where they're going to retire early to get that pension. But then they say to the people that we're going to cut your pension pay, and then you still have to work longer. So it's just basically upfront direct fleecing and robbery of the people, reducing you back to the state of a pauper, where you will constantly be paying in, and never collecting. And the government also, if you check the health system, the government will not pay enough attention to the health of the people, because the government may prefer people to be unhealthy close to death, because that means that, one, they don't gotta pay them free non-contributory pension, and also they could keep the people's money that were paying in over all the years, so that they could do whatever they want to do with that money.
Okay. All right.
I'm glad you went down that road, Kimar, and I'm going to thank you for jogging my memory, because there's something that I missed the whole week. And if you didn't start with this severance thing, I think I remember you just said that the government extended the severance to 22 weeks. But remember they extended it for that additional period, and then they took adjudication of those claims away from the normal severance payments tribunals and set up a one-man show to come and hear the claims. Because under the Severance Payment Act, and you do not get your severance pay from your employer, you go to national insurance. National insurance would summon the employer could choose not to come and offer no evidence and defend his case, in which case your case is much easier. But the government pull a fast one on people, and I've heard nobody with it. They took all the people out of COVID and put them under a special dispensation. So if you apply for your severance under COVID and the employers don't pay, then you will apply to national insurance, and national insurance will pay up front and then get it back from the employer. That is the normal procedure. And they purport to do the same thing for the worker, for these COVID people. But you know, they cannot enforce that legislation. You want to know why? The order was signed by Ryan Strong, minister responsible for severance. He was never minister responsible for severance. So no employer will have to obey that order. So that's the trick. If you don't have, because when you go to the employer now, the national insurance go to the employer and say, you owe us this amount of money because we paid on your behalf, you got to pay it back. The employer says, under what authority? Because Ryan Strong had the authority to sign any orders minister with severance. So he cannot bind employers to pay anybody anything. And I think that was the trick. I was thinking that it was a mistake. But it's not a mistake. It is a way out for employers, for national insurance to pay all of that additional severance for all those hotels who shut down and send home people and then don't have to pay it back. Every other employer who make people redundant and they cannot pay at the same time, the national insurance go after you to pay it back over a period of time. They give you sometimes to pay it back with interest. These ones, however, that went during COVID, will only have to do it on paper. But in actual fact, there is no law in place that can force them to pay because Ryan Strong wrote the law and he didn't have the authority. I think that was deliberate. Thank you, Kimara. You just jogged my memory. So that is another draw on the fund. So all the severance payments that were paid out of that fund ain't going back in because the employers now don't have to pay it back. So that was another way of fleecing the fund again.
Yeah, but you jog my memory as to something else. The government gave the hoteliers that big benefit of severance. And then on top of that, they still turn around and gave them a free $300 million in the best program for nothing.
Yeah.
So you heard
people and pay them 80%.
You heard the other day they're speaking about. You heard them the other day speaking about the fact that the best program was a failure or whatever. So most of the money that was drawn down on the best program, it was supposed to be for training. It was supposed to be facilitating renewable energy transfers. So the hoteliers got free money to rebuild their properties, plants, and equipment, and nothing to show from it. So how come there's no accountability in the government reclaiming that free money? $300 million that they just gifted the hotels, just gifted them the severance. And my thing, we need to look at how the government is using these so-called independent organizations to help control Barbados. So once upon a time we had strong unions, now we have subdued captive unions. Once upon a time we had strong political parties, now we got subdued captive political parties. So it's not just MPs and the 30 people in there. You actually got offshoots of these 30 people in these independent organizations doing the bidding of the government, setting up themselves, lobbying, and the government is channeling the large sums of money, taxpayers' money, through these organizations for whatever reasons they want. So, we will get that. My last point here I really want to touch on before we move off would have been